So online security, these really are my own words. But if you go online, if you Google, cybersecurity or online security, you get lots of different definitions. But at the crux, at the real core of it, what we're trying to do is we're trying to protect ourselves, our data, our identity, our movements online. We don't want it to be tracked. So any sort of personal activity or data. And we're also trying to protect the devices that we use when we're online. So your mobile devices, your tablets, your laptops. You don't want any attacks on those where your data gets wiped out or your device becomes unusable or locked. So basically, that's what it is. But there's more descriptive or robust descriptions online if you'd like to look them up later. Next slide, please, Shankar. So this is just a quick gauge of what people think or what people know about security. So often, like, all of you on the call might be a little bit better versed with security because you're doing technical studies or interested in technology, but many people don't. So this is from the US. It says nearly 1/3 of US adults don't know what malware means, right? Malware is just any malicious software. So think Trojans, viruses, ransomware, that kind of thing. Um, so a lot of people don't know what this is or that it exists, and hackers use these modes to gain access to your data or to your devices, right? And also 88% of people think they're being really safe online, but actually only 10% really are. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Perhaps we're not as safe as we think we are, and that's something to address. So we'll go over a few things that we can do to be a little bit safer. Right, so the next slide. Um, one of the main things, and the easiest things you can do is create complex passwords, right? So most sites that you're on have login requirements, but oftentimes, now look, I do this too, just so it's easy for me to remember. I'll use particular words or particular variations of the same word as passwords across different platforms. So maybe for my email, for social media, for my online banking, maybe I'll use similar passwords or the same password, which is really, really bad because when there are attacks, say, they got your email login details because Yahoo or Gmail was hacked. Now they can use those same credentials randomly on other applications just to see if you have a login there. So if you use the same login information, the same password, you're at risk not only for that first breach of your email, but subsequent breaches for other applications as well. So it's really crucial that you have separate passwords for all of your login platforms and that they are secure. So it's not things that can be guessed with auto-generated passwords, right? Um, one thing that can really help you with this is to have a password manager. Now, I've recently started using a password manager. I use LastPass. There's a free version, and the free version is sufficient for you to manage your passwords. And you can download something for your browser as well so that it'll automatically link with your password manager. In my case, it's LastPass, and it'll help pre-fill your passwords and remember all of them. So after you start using a password manager tool, basically it's a database for your passwords and your logins, right? So then you don't have to remember any of your logins. All you need to do is remember one password. That's your password manager password. Now, you are kind of in trouble if you forget that. But so just remember you need to somehow be able to remember that password manager password, and then that will store all of the other passwords for you. Um, so if there's one thing you want to do today to be more secure online, I would suggest logging into something like LastPass and storing your passwords there. The next thing that you can do is two-factor or multi-factor authentication. So most sites don't really have a high level of security. Maybe some banking sites may, like financial sites, but say you're logging into your email, all you need is your email address and a password, right? So if a hacker got that information, they could very easily get into your account. But imagine if there was another step of authentication. Maybe they also send you a time-based code to your phone. Now that's good. That's better than not having it. But even using your phone, someone might hack into your phone, get your phone number, so they may have access to those codes that come to your phone. But the best thing to do is do it through your password manager application. So LastPass, so I put the link there at the bottom. They have an authentication tool, and through that, auto-generated numbers will come to, or auto-generated code will come to your password manager, and that you can use it to log into something like your email. So there'll be an extra step of validation, and you can be sure you're the only one who has access to that. So even if a hacker had your password and your email, they wouldn't be able to get into your account and steal your data. So, and just one thing to remember though is with security, sometimes there's a trade-off with speed or just it being easy. So now you have to enter another password. So it might just make things a little bit more cumbersome. So you have to weigh it out and think, well, do I care more about my security, or do I care more about spending maybe 5 extra seconds on my login? So that's a personal thing. You have to figure out what you care about more. And the next is about network security. Now, I think with this, I know I get very complacent. I sometimes forget that I might not be on a secure password, secure network. Now, if you're at home, if you're using your home internet, that's safer because you generally will have a password on it. And even in workplaces, they'll almost always be password protected. But when we're out in public, when we go to a cafe, or if you're at the airport, or some government, like the passport office, I don't know if they have Wi-Fi, but it would be public networks, which often are not secure. They don't have passwords, and people can intercept your data. And I would always like you to think about it this way. If in the online world, if it's free, it probably isn't really free. You're probably paying for it with your data. So on these free networks, if you must use them, just be careful. Be careful not to share any personal data. Don't do any online banking. Just do, what you must do at that point. Don't give them anything that that compromises something that you really like to keep safe, like your banking information. And you can also consider investing in a VPN. Individuals don't usually do this, but this is an extra step you could take. And I'm sure like people who work in cybersecurity do all of this. They care more about the personal security because they know about the risk of attacks. And then the next one, firewalls. So most companies will have firewalls. So next slide, Shankar. Thank you. So even if your network is secure, you should have a firewall, right? So even if it's password protected, a firewall basically is a barrier that blocks any activity outside entities from your network, right? So if a hacker is trying to get in, it will see that it's trying to break through your firewalls, right? Now, So if you have like any security software, say Norton, any kind of secure software like that, often they do provide this, but you have to check that, they do actually provide a firewall along with the antivirus um, kind of capability that they have. And note that firewalls also ensure that devices connected to your network are secure. So sometimes we forget that there are other devices connected to our network. So if you have a smart webcam or a smart thermostat that measures the temperature in your house, or some devices like that, if it's connected to your network, they generally don't have any built-in security. And that may be a vulnerable point in your network. So if you have a firewall, it protects you against all of that as well. So all these other devices connected to your network, which may be the weak link, those will be protected as well. And the next slide is Click Smart. Now this I think we all know, but sometimes we do get, I guess, tricked or enticed by really great offers or deals or free downloads. But this is really essential, right? So this is something you have to train yourself to do. And I'm sure many of you do it anyway. So beware of phishing and social engineering attacks. So I'll show you an example in a little bit, so I'll come back to that. Spam emails, texts, phony free offers, clickbait, online quizzes, games. All of these are ways that hackers entice you or trick you with something shiny and great to get you to click, right? So before you do, just check to see, is this something I care about? Is this something I need? Is this a reliable source? Is it somewhere I've been before? And what are the possible downsides of this? And weigh things up before you actually click on these. And I would suggest if you don't need it, don't click on it online. And so was it last year, the year before? I can't remember. Or no, it was during the time of the last presidential election. So Cambridge Analytica got a lot of data off of Facebook users, right? And how did that happen? It happened, it was through some kind of game, Facebook game that people used and unknowingly gave away their data and the data of their friends as well. So sometimes when we download things or when we go into these games, it'll have a little disclaimer at the bottom saying, "Oh, you'll have to let us use your camera. You'll have to share your contacts, blah blah blah." Generally, we don't read them. We just go, "Okay," because we just want to play that game. But that's what many hundreds of thousands of people did, and wound up giving away critical data that swung um, the American elections. So it could be as bad as that, right? So keep that in mind. So whenever you're going in and downloading a new thing, playing a new game, it's taking some data from you. So it's worth your while reading what it's going to take from you and and updating your preferences so that they don't take that data from you. Right? So just be careful or wary of any offers that sound too good to be true. So if you get an email saying you've won the lottery and you haven't entered a lottery, it probably is a scam. So, and the next slide. So here's an example of, now I've got emails like this from PayPal. It looks exactly like a PayPal email. The PayPal logo is there, the UI, the buttons, the colors, everything looks legitimate, right? But one thing that didn't look legitimate was the email. So it says from customer service, but it says access at up.com. But generally, I know it comes from a paypal.com email. And so I could immediately say, okay, this is a fake. And if you do get things like this do not click on the email. So even if it's a real email from PayPal and you're doubtful, don't click in through these links. Just log in through your browser to PayPal the way you usually do and check whatever you need to check. So that way you're safer. Now, we're talking about online, but these things happen over the phone as well. So, fake people pretending to be the bank or the tax office may call as well. So even in those instances, just say, look, I don't want to give you my information, and you can contact them instead. So then you're going to a trusted source, and then you can check whatever you need to check. So in the next slide, this is about data you're sharing. We sort of touched on it in the last slide. But so just be careful of any data you share online. There's a YouTube video that I linked over there. So take a look at that after this session. So they call some random people off of the street, I think in Brussels, and they say a fortune teller is going to tell them their fortune and tell them things about themselves. And what they do is they actually have a bunch of hackers at the back that you can't see who just with the information they found out on that day, things like their name, what city they live in, they found so much data just lying around online about these people. So, and they fed it to the fortune teller via an earpiece. And he kind of said, okay, this is your name, this is what town you're from, this is your credit card details, these are your friends. And people were so surprised. And at the end of this little show, they say, well, this is not a fortune teller. This is all data you've left lying around online. So be careful of all the data you're leaving lying around. Just do some quick Google searches on yourself or things about yourself and see what breadcrumbs you're leaving around and clean them up. And data you're sharing on social media. Now, social media can be good and bad. We'll talk about that a little bit more at the end. So with social media, we often share a lot of personal thoughts, maybe even things related to work, our political beliefs. And with that, do we always know who we're sharing that data with, right? And who other people are sharing that data with? Because somebody can share your post and that will live out there online unless you change your settings. So I would encourage everyone to check their settings, know who you're sharing things with. And really the best thing you can do is not share anything. I know that's not feasible, but just remember everything you put up online is a trace in your history. And so, 15 years from now, you're holding a high position government job and then people go back and look at your online social media platforms and you might have said something really silly when you were young and, not as mature. But that data lives out there and people will use that against you. So be careful and be aware of what you're saying and sharing. Now, I know that a lot of companies, when they're hiring, will search people's names and look at their social media to see what kind of people they are or what their personal beliefs are, what their political beliefs are. So the less information you have out there, the less people have to judge you online and use that against you. Right. Now, services that are free, be aware, be really wary because you're paying for it with your data. Think Facebook, right? Facebook is free, has billions of users. What we're paying for, how we're paying for it is with our data, right? So how do they make money? Through ad services. So based on data you're sharing, say I click on online courses in IT or cybersecurity, then Facebook takes that data and knows, okay, I Rowan is interested in cybersecurity online classes, then they will share that data with a company who does online security courses and say, look, this person is interested, and they will start sharing their ads with me. So that's how the ads that you see on Facebook come about. Now you can change that by going into your ad preferences and settings in Facebook and changing what you share, saying, don't track what I'm clicking, don't show me these ads, and you can download your data and see what you've shared with Facebook as well. Now, I'm just talking about Facebook, but this is true for all other social media platforms or any other platforms that you sign up with. So go check your settings once we're done with this and update it to something you're comfortable with sharing with these sites. Because no, they're not using your data. They're not always using your data for your benefit. So data privacy laws. So this is, in theory, data privacy laws are great, right? So Europe recently, I think over the last couple of years, enforced a lot of laws which have been on the side of the consumer, so us, right? Which is great. So one of the biggest changes is that, when you download an application or you sign into something, when you're signing in, it says or it says you'll have to share, your contacts with us. You'll have to share your email, blah blah blah, and that you agree with all of that. They're generally already opted in or checked, saying yes, right? So one of the this law said you can't do that. You've got to leave that with the user. So they changed it so that it's no longer ticked. Now this is in Europe, right? So that means it's more incentive for the user to actually read and check, do I want to share this with you? And then explicitly with a click, say yes and put the tick in. So certain countries and certain regions are being better about this and protecting their consumers, but not every country or every region is. So now if you take the USA, they're more on the side of business. They care more about business, um, like providing the service rather than the consumers. So they still continue to do it the other way around, where, well, it's already pre-checked. You don't have you can still uncheck them, right? And say, no, I don't want to share this with you. But it just makes it a little bit easier for the company to get away with it if they can just auto check those preferences, right? And tech moves so fast. Now, if you think about AI, machine learning, it's going way faster than the law can keep up with. The law is a slow moving beast. It takes 10, 15 years to catch up, really. And that's one of the issues we've had with all these social media and tech giants and platforms. Laws aren't appropriately regulating them because they're kind of futuristic. They create situations we never knew about 10 years ago. If you take 20 years ago, we never knew about social media or AI or any of that. They're creating things, right? So, which means the law has to catch up and create these scenarios and then think deeply about how it affects society and how we need to regulate it. So, don't always bank on the data privacy laws because they're behind. So, you have to be that gatekeeper until they catch up. And in my opinion, I don't think the laws will ever catch up. And the next slide is safe surfing. Um, so yeah, so when you're online, you'll go into different websites. And one of the easiest things you can check is if they use a secure protocol. So in the site address, if it says HTTPS, that means it's secure. If it says HTTP, it's insecure. So that's a real quick way of checking, is it secure, and avoid using um, websites that don't use it. Because that just tells you that your data is secure and encrypted when it's sent out. So even if a hacker intercepts your data, it's all scrambled up. It's not in order, and it's encrypted. So it's hard for them to decrypt it, even if they intercept your data. And look out for sites with bad spellings, but bad grammar, or just anything that looks off and not authentic. Because usually reliable sites will have someone check these things. Not always, but generally all the known sites, the big sites, will have all that cleaned up and will look really professional. Whereas copycats will look really similar, but they may have errors. And in the next slide, another thing you can do is just keep up to date. So we all should have some kind of security software, and it might be provided by your operating system. So download those security patches, keep them updated, have automatic updates on, have a regular scan set up already, so you don't even have to think about it. It happens in the background, right? And the next slide is look out for the latest scams. It's always changing, right? So online threats, what we had yesterday is not what we'll have today. So just keep up to date on what's happening so you can keep your security and defenses up to date as well. So today, ransomware is really a popular way people extort money off of you, right? So hackers threaten to lock you out of your computer or your file until you pay something. And generally, they will get you to pay with Bitcoin because Bitcoin can't be traced. So they get away scot-free. And then the next one, this is something I'm sure everyone's aware. We've all had data that we lost because we forgot to save it or to back it up. So just a rule of thumb, always back up any data that you care about. Back it up. You can put it up on the cloud. Just know the cloud may not be as secure and safe as well, but back it up somewhere you feel comfortable and secure with. And I've also just linked the website I took all of this information on if you want to read a little bit more about it. At the next slide, we're going into cyberbullying. So when you think about safety online, it's not only about securing your data and your devices, right? There's lots of bad behavior online that we need to be aware of as well. There are trolls who are just people with bad intentions, who are disruptive, who may post angry, vulgar comments and just incite hate, right? So we need to be aware of that so we disengage from those people. I'm sure we've all seen, a post or a tweet that we followed and then some angry things being written. And you can see these people, like there's you can see them commenting multiple times and saying things that are just building up the anger and animosity between people. So those are trolls. What I'd recommend is just to steer clear, because otherwise you just get into it. You get into heated arguments with people who, that's what they want. They just want to get people angry and riled up, and they're just having a good time behind a screen somewhere. And then there's also people who impersonate you, who could steal your data or log into your accounts or create accounts that look like you and pretend to be you. So that's another way of bullying as well, or sharing embarrassing information. So, with the data that you share, and sometimes you share information that you think is personal, right? And this is a problem with, young teens who aren't really aware that what you share can be, is out there forever. And so with their friends or people they think they trust, they might share photos that, might be embarrassing if other people saw. So people can take that and share it around and embarrass you, or cause you mental harm. So that's a way of cyberbullying as well. They could trick you. They could pretend to be somebody you trust, talking to you behind a screen, and then trick you out of your money, or in other ways. Or they could just harass you or stalk you. They could keep replying your messages with things that you don't like, or just keep checking in on all your online activity, send you um, messages or comments that you feel is harassing you, or spread gossip, rumors. So these are just some things under cyberbullying. There's a lot more. So any of this falls under cyberbullying. So if you want to read more, there's a link at the bottom there, that you can go to and check that. So to stay safe from cyberbullying, I think one of the best things is not to engage. So if you see scenarios where there's angry commentary, don't engage. Sometimes you may have something useful to say, but generally online is not the best way to have fruitful conversation. It's much better to do it offline rather than online, because you might, wind up um, maybe even bullying someone yourself without realizing. And the less information cyberbullies have to use against you. And the next one, so we touched on social media before, and I think this is a huge problem right now. So I want to spend a bit of time talking about this. And I've put some references in there, and I highly recommend that you watch these videos, and look at these links, to see, to better understand phone and using social media can do to your productivity and your mental health. Um, so again, with technology, technology evolves so quickly before other standards or laws can catch up, right? So with social media, people started using it. It was fun, but it was probably years down the line that people understood, oh my God, we're spending hours on these social media platforms and wasting our time. Now it's causing issues with attention spans with our children. It's causing mental health issues. There's a lot of cyberbullying. There's so many issues that came up with something that we kind of made up with tech, right? So it's always looking back that we actually understand it and then adjust for it. So whenever these new waves happen, and there'll be new tech things that happen after this as well, just always be aware of that there may be repercussions that we only think about later. So with when we talk about tech, like social media within tech, their main aim is to make money, right? So they create their applications so that you spend as much time as they want you to using their application. Now, if I take Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook, social media platforms as their competitors. So they're all trying, so you have 24 hours in your day, but they are all trying to get that 24 hours out of you. So if Twitter gets more time, that means, Facebook is not getting enough time. So they're all they're competing with each other for your eyeball time, right? So what they do is they use psychologists, they use really smart people to design their applications in a way that's addictive. So in the same way as, alcohol or smoking or drugs, to be that addictive. So their choice of colors, where they place the notifications, the little dings, the way they let you know new messages come in, all of that is really, really well thought out by very smart teams. And so they do it in a way that it's really hard for you to look away and stop using it. So that's why sometimes you pick up your phone to just do something quick, but then 3 hours later you think, oh my God, where did the time go? That's because it's built to be that way. and they're also competing with each other. So if you go to another app, it will suck you in the same way as well. Um, a little while ago, maybe 1 or 2 years ago, I think YouTube started auto playing videos. Now, that's a very smart thing to do for YouTube, but not so great for us, because that means without our click, without our knowledge really, or approval, they're automatically going to the next video. So you might wind up watching 10 videos because you didn't think to stop it and then you got sucked in by the next one. So these are little tricks that they use. So be aware of that and know that each time, so if I go back to Facebook again, so with their likes, the clicks, with comments, so each time you get a comment or a like, you get a notification that's a little red blob. So anything red generally catches our eye and we have to click on it. So it's really hard to walk away from that. And then when you click on it and then you see, oh, 2 people liked my post, and that gives you a dopamine rush. Dopamine, the exact hormone that is released when you feel extremely happy, when you drink a glass of wine, or when you have a shot of, if you shoot up some cocaine, it's the same hormone that's released. So that could create addictive behavior. And the way these sites do it is you get little dopamine rushes, which make you feel good through the day as you use social media. So you don't want to stop because you want to keep feeling that good feeling. So they've coded it really to mimic addictive behavior. So I don't say this lightly when I say addiction to technology is very much like real world addictions like alcohol and drugs. So I think as tech users, we need to be very aware of that, and put defenses in place so that we don't get sucked in. So there are lots of apps you can download, like Off Time. Just Google it. So many will come up, different ones for Android and iPhones, where it can track your time on each site and then it can limit you or lock it out for a particular time. I suggest everybody does that because limiting our time is beyond our control, really, because they've coded it so well. And I'd also suggest a book, which I didn't put down here, about how to break up with your phone. It's a really simple read, and it's it's over 30 days. Each day it gives you a new practice or a new tool to use against being so sucked in by your phone or sucked in by social media. So I highly recommend that. How to break up with your phone. Um, and I'll end with just a simple study that Harvard University did. So they found that people who are working, studying, if they had their phone on the table in the room that they were studying, they were less productive than if they had the phone in another room to where they were studying or working. So there's something like a simple thing you can do while you're studying or you're working. Put your phone in a drawer, keep your phone in your bag, or put it in another room. The further it is away from you, the better. There's less distractions. Um, so we covered quite a bit there. So we had kind of your traditional online security about, password securities, protecting your data. And then we had cyberbullying and then tech hygiene, which I think is really important now, particularly for young people like you and even younger who are technology natives and don't know, a world without technology. It's really important to have some good guidelines in tech hygiene. Um, but that was all I had prepped. Did anyone have any questions or comments? All right, if we don't have any questions, I think we're all done, Shankar, and Michelle can take over.
Thank you. Thank you, Rooney, for that very detailed explanation. If you
Yep,
guys
no
have any
worries.
questions, please feel free to ask Rooney.
It's a question that has come.
Oh, so what's the meaning of hygiene? So in the traditional use of hygiene, the English meaning really is, like say, when you wash your hands, when you keep things clean, you're being hygienic. You're keeping things very clean, right? So tech hygiene is a new phrase. It's talking about being safe and clean online. So kind of thinking about your mental health, thinking about your time usage, things like that. So again, it's just taking that traditional word where hygiene is like washing your hands and staying clean. How do you do that in a tech online sense? That's what tech hygiene means. Does that help, Eshan? Okay, great. What makes
We have one more
password
question.
database more secure? So go back to that. So okay, so you mean password managers, right? So password managers are essentially a password database. So I use LastPass, and I was actually talking to a friend about this exact thing, so I have the answer for you. So if you create your own, it'll probably be more difficult. I would suggest just using something that's already out there. Like uh, there are a lot of free software out there that you can use that are very secure. So LastPass, it encrypts all the data, right? So it actually doesn't have access to your password. So a developer in LastPass cannot go to the database.
Sorry, we
Hello?
don't hear Rue at the moment.
Hello, Rooney? I think
Hi,
she's
this
having
is
connection
this is
issues.
Barney, but I don't think we can hear Rue, no? I can't.
Yeah, neither can I. All right, that's all right. Michelle, you can carry on when you're
Oh,
ready.
Shankar, did I just drop out there?
Yeah, you dropped out for a second.
Oh, sorry. I'm happy to repeat. Can you just let me know
Okay,
where
yeah, yeah.
I dropped off? What was I saying?
Uh,
The last one was totally almost muted. You might have to
exactly,
answer
yeah.
it again.
All right, cool. Okay, so we were talking how can databases, password databases be more secure, right? So I would strongly suggest that you use an existing password manager like LastPass because they've done all the security around their databases rather than creating your own. Um, Now, I'll take LastPass as an example because I use it. And I was talking to a friend about this. So we were talking about this exact thing. So LastPass was hacked into, I think, a couple of years ago, right? But so the databases could be hacked into because there's an issue with their firewalls or some vulnerability. But the good thing is, even though hackers got into it, they couldn't get to your password in a meaningful way because everything is encrypted. So what that means is, so if a hacker got into the database, got into the actual data rows and found it, they wouldn't be able to actually use that to log into your email, for example, because it's all encrypted. So it's sort of two levels of security then. They've got their firewalls and external safety to stop attacks into the database. And then even if they do get to the database, they have their data encrypted in such a way that they can't crack it. So if I knew a developer in LastPass and I asked them to, find my email password, my Gmail password, they can't do it. So even the developers don't have that access to decrypt passwords within the database. And another thing is, if I lose my password to LastPass, there's no way to get that back, because LastPass doesn't actually hold your password the same way other applications do. So one thing to remember is, if you are using a password manager, you must remember your password. But you only have to remember one password for the rest of your life, just your LastPass password, and all your other passwords will be saved within that if you use it properly. And so with two-factor authentication, I might just touch on that as well.
Rooney? I think she dropped off again.
Yeah, we lost her again.
All right, it's okay. Since we're behind schedule, Michelle, over to you.
Thanks, Shankar.
Right.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Okay, I'm just going to quickly switch on my camera. Sort of important that you can put a face to the name, as well as since I'll be doing a bit of demo.
Can you just speak a bit louder?
Yeah. And have we seen Michelle at all? It might be good just to show her for 5 minutes at least.
Yeah, I'm now switched on my video, so hopefully you should be able to see me now.
Yes, we can.
Okay? Okay, super.
Okay.
So hi everyone. I'll be walking you through a couple of slides on business etiquette. So hopefully you'll find the session.
Michelle, sorry to interrupt. There is a background noise from your end.
Is that so? Okay. Let me try and get some headphones on. Just give me 30 seconds.
Okay, cool. Just give us a couple of minutes, guys, till Michelle sorts her microphone.
You are now.
Hi, is this better?
Yeah, a lot better. All right.
Oh, great. Okay. Let me get back into sharing. Okay.
Sorry, guys, I think I dropped off again, didn't I?
You did. Michelle is gonna go ahead with her presentation.
All right, cool. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thanks, Roni. So I'm going to walk you guys through a couple of slides on business etiquette. Shankar, if you can move to the next one. So hi, I'm Michelle, and I'm currently in the role of an Associate Manager of Learning and Development at the London Stock Exchange Group. I have close upon to 5.5 years of experience in the learning and talent space, and I also worked as a radio personality a couple of years ago for 2 years at Yes FM, so you may have not heard me. I also have a degree in psychology from the current university, and I'm super passionate about psychology. And apart from Sri Lanka, I have lived 7 years in Bangladesh, and I've lived just a little over a year in Canada. So if you ask me, yes, I can speak Bengali quite fluently. And believe it or not, it is, I think, the 6th or 7th most spoken language in the world. So that's quite great. I personally pride myself in it. And whenever I have the free time, I find myself in the kitchen, either cooking or baking. So that's basically a little bit about myself. Moving on to today's agenda, I want to start off with this quote saying, "You will never get a chance to make a good first impression." Whether you like it or not, the world drives and revolves around perceptions. So unless and otherwise, you really, really make an effort on, nailing the first time you meet someone and creating that first impression, it's very, very unlikely that you'll get a second chance to overcrowd that judgment of theirs. So having said that, I think business etiquette is something that is really important for you guys to understand and familiarize yourself with as you progress on from your school, from university life over into the corporate life and the corporate setting. So what is business etiquette, if you ask me? It's basically just a set of rules, unspoken, spoken, accepted, whether we like it or not. It's basically a set of rules that govern the way that people interact with each other, with businesses, customers, suppliers, within inside or outside of our bodies, and it's always about conveying the right image and behaving in an appropriate way. So I really wanted you to think of these two images that I put at the bottom. One is graphite and the other one is diamonds. And if you break it down to the fundamental component of what it comprises of, can someone tell me what it is? Anyone? Okay, it's basically carbon, right? So the same carbon that's in graphite is the same carbon that's in diamonds. But why is something like why is something like graphite so easy for us to obtain and so cheap, as opposed to something like a diamond that's really, really expensive and it's sought after? It's mainly because of the structure of it, right? One has a tetrahedral structure, one has a hexagonal structure, diamond and graphite. Just the mere change of a structure completely changes the perception of a simple carbon molecule. Yeah. So if you really think of business etiquette in that way, all of us are almost like graphite. And what will help us get us to the whole concept of a diamond, along with your degrees, your attitude, so many different things, one such thing that's going to help you become a diamond is business etiquette. So I really want you to sort of have a bit of an open mind. Some of these things you possibly know already, some of these things are possibly new, but what I want you to do is to sort of understand where you want to be in this journey to become a diamond. Okay, so that's basically what I want you to have in mind. Moving on, this is what your structure is going to be like today. So we're going to cover I'm going to walk you through from inwards to outwards. So inwards in terms of your general hygiene, about outwards meaning different types of dress code, how you can behave in an meeting environment, and how you need to wine and dine. So it's quite structured in the way that I'm going to take you through. So first off the bat, let's start with general hygiene. Okay. Next one. Okay. So once again, it's an important topic, general hygiene. Shankar, if you can move to the next slide. Yeah, thanks. So think of it this way. This is a really hot topic in today's day and age because, as this Lebanese proverb says, hygiene is 2/3 of health. So I'm sure you've heard of things like wash your hands regularly, etc., etc. So why is hygiene so important for the overall aspect of business etiquette? Because like I said, everything starts inwards. You can't necessarily cover a pile of garbage with a beautiful cloth and just assume everything is going to be okay, right? A little goes a really long way. So we'll start off with your hair and your face. So a couple of slides ago, you saw a picture of me with really long hair. So I actually donated my hair, cut off 12 inches, and here I am with short hair. What I realized is in my process, this took me about 1.5 to 2 years of growing my long hair. It took a lot of effort of maintaining it, shampooing it properly. It took a long time for it to dry. But now that I have shorter hair, I have less time and it's easier for me to manage. The point that I'm trying to make is really, really love and know your body. When you're having those extra showers, just take an extra amount of time for you to really make an effort and maintain your hair and your face. So use an appropriate shampoo, use an appropriate face wash that works well with your skin and hair. The reason I'm saying this is because your face and your hair is an amazing home for, dirt, for bacteria, for excess oil, the ones that we really don't like, but they love it because it's a very healthy environment for them to grow. The more and more that we don't necessarily pay attention to it, the more they're going to like it, and they're likely going to stay and make it their humble home. And that's what leads to a lot of problems. Now, why is this important to business etiquette? I'll walk you through all these different all the 3 areas, and I'll tell you why exactly it's important. Girls and guys, if you have facial hair, make sure you make an extra effort in terms of washing that area and trimming that area regularly as well, because that's really, really important, especially since you eat, you don't want any food residue in that area, and it kind of becomes a little disgusting. So pay extra attention to that. Moving on to body care. So your skin is the largest organ in your body. I'm sure you've heard of this in your bioscience class, and it needs a lot of care. So take time when you're taking showers. And a quick tip on perfumes, if you're using a really good brand and you can invest in one, I'm saying invest for a very good reason, mainly because a little goes a long way, and you can use the particular perfume for a longer period of time. What you don't want is, you always have that friend or that person that's like drenched from head to toe in perfume, and you can smell the person a mile away. You need to be a bit more careful because people around you do have allergies or they're quite sensitive to smell. And what you don't want happening is, if you're in a meeting, someone just cannot get past of your perfume smell, whether they like it or not. So again, a little goes a really long way. And a couple of things about adding perfume. It's really important that you just put it in these particular areas. So just on your wrists and just behind your ears, so just behind your earlobes, and even on your elbows just over here. Reason being, those are like your pulse places, and your skin is a bit thinner over there and a bit warmer. So it reacts well with your own body scent and sort of emulsifies it. So that's a really good place for you to start. Moving on to hands and nails. Again, really hot topic. Keep washing your hands, but again, don't overwash it so it becomes completely dry. Few areas that you should definitely wash your hands if you're not doing already is, of course, after you use the bathroom, just before you eat, and if you generally feel like it's a bit dirty and oily, it's a good idea for you to sort of wash your hands. And then again, your nails, you're not a cat, so start trimming them at all. So like I said, it is a lot of steps, and you, myself, all of us are kind of busy people. We don't necessarily have time to go through the entire process of cleaning from head to toe on a regular basis. And I completely understand that, and I live that life as well. So while we, move into sort of doing this on a regular basis, meaning washing your hands, having those 10 to 15-minute showers every day, what I've developed, or what I sort of, you can take this as an example if you want, but I sort of have dedicated Sundays as self-care Sundays for me to sort of give that extra time to make sure there's a better exfoliation. If I want to use a hair mask, face mask, anything, Sundays are usually where you can sit back and relax, and gives you a really good movement and motivation to sort of start your next busy week from Monday. So that's possibly a tip for you if Sunday works for you. That's basically what I have for you from this slide, unless anyone has any questions regarding it. No? Okay. Dress code. As you move along in your career, or even now, usually wherever you are invited to, or even the company that you're going to join, will have an idea or has a culture. And from that culture stems the dress code. So if you think of even the Oscars, the way people dress to Oscars is not how you go to work. The way that you go to the gym is not how you go to the Oscars. So there's always a sense of dress. And that's really important for us to understand. So I've just chosen 4 of the very, very common dressing styles that people ask and the dress codes that people have put in the invitations or something of that sort, right? Having said that, why do we need to pay attention to the way that we dress? Like I said, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. And whether we like it or not, the way someone dresses, there's always someone that judges you about that. And before I go, once I finish all of this, I'll just give you a couple of pointers on accessorizing and things like that. So let's look at the first 2. You have casual and then you have business casual. There's a clear difference between the 2 of these, right? It's just a simple add-on of business, but that's basically what it is. If you think of casual, that's possibly how you will just to college, just to university, just to hang out with your friends, or even on Fridays. A lot of companies have just on Fridays, and that's basically what casual comes to be. So that's when you can wear your casual t-shirt, a nice cotton dress, maybe some jeans. Having said that, that's basically what casual is all about. Business casual is a completely different aspect to it. A lot of companies in Sri Lanka have business casual, I think apart from banks, which are a bit more formal, especially because of the clientele that they deal with. But most often than not, a lot of the companies in Sri Lanka adhere to a business casual dress style, especially because of our weather, because of the industry that we're in, and business casual sits really well. So it's a really good idea if you could maybe start, Googling some images and see what business casual really means. So this is possibly where, if you ever need to give presentations at your current university or school, if you need to come dressed up, that's basically what business casual is all about. So nice blouse, so kind of like what I'm wearing right now, a nice cotton blouse, some nice slacks or a knee-length skirt. Guys, if you want to wear like a blazer around, that's basically where you want to go ahead with. So that's the difference between casual and business casual. Moving on to the second slide, here's where things get a little formal. So if someone says business formal, this is basically when someone like a VIP is visiting your company or your premises, or it's basically almost like the pinnacle of a corporate attire. So if something important is happening in the organization, most often than not, it's business formal. So in the Sri Lankan context, even women, they sometimes, wear a really nice office sari if needed. And a lot of top executives come dressed to work in business formal as well. And then what about black tie? I like to think of black tie as James Bond, 007. It's kind of like when I remember how I remember black tie. So it's more of a cocktail vibe. And the weird thing is a black tie, men don't necessarily wear a tie, but it's more of a bow tie. But for some reason, it's just called black tie. So that's basically the difference between the 2 of these. But to summarize all of this, I told you I'll talk to you about accessorizing. It's really important for you to first capture your style and understand what style works for you, and of course what you're comfortable to wear. So let's say think that you're planning to go to work and you want to wear perhaps a sleeveless top or a cold shoulder top with possibly a knee-length skirt, or just above your knee, a thigh-high skirt. Let's say that. Usually, the golden rule to follow, you either show off your hands or your legs. It's one of the 2. Both of it is a bit too much going on, okay? So here's a couple of suggestions. You can possibly think of wearing a sleeveless a top, or a cold shoulder top with perhaps either long pants or maybe an ankle length skirt. Or you can wear something like a long sleeved blouse with a short skirt. That's possibly what it is. Next, moving on to accessories. I'm sure when you wear
Question, Michelle, just to add a little bit about saris and the national wear that would fit in it.
So it really depends, Ban. So on a business formal occasion, you can wear a cotton sari as business formal. For a black tie event, even in Sri Lanka, you can wear one of those really rich, those really rich satin bedazzled saris, even for a black tie event. And you can even wear a national costume if required, as long as it's rich and elegant for a black tie event as well. I hope that answers the question. So moving on to the accessories part, usually when you buy your accessories, they'll give you, and if you buy a set, more often than not, you'll get your earrings, a pendant or a chain, you get a bracelet, as well as a ring. So all 4 things, which is great because here you have something that you can mismatch with and you have 4 items. But like I said, less is more. So it doesn't mean that you have to wear all 4 items in one go. So here's a couple of golden rules. If you wear your earrings, you can accessorize that with either your bracelet or your ring. Or if you're wearing your chain or your pendant, switch it out for a very subtle pair of earrings, and then you can pair it up with either your ring or your chain. What you don't want happening is a lot going here, a lot going here, and a lot going here. So if you're trying to convince someone or you're trying to have a meeting with someone, more often than not, they're literally going to focus on what you're wearing and like there's so much going on without not necessarily listening to what you're saying. So like I said, less is more, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you have regarding this. Okay, moving on to meeting etiquette. So we've covered your hygiene, we've covered your dressing style, and now here you are in the meeting. I first want to focus on networking, okay? So during your entire career, you will get the opportunity to participate in social events, conferences, cocktails, whatever it is, whether it's inside your organization or at an external organization. The reason this is really important is, number one, the first thing you realize is as soon as you join an organization is, it's really important for you to have a wide network, meaning you need to have sort of that connection with other companies, what's going on in the industry. It's really, really important. Even things like, Slascom, it's a network of people. So we can keep in touch with other people. So the reason, the event that you can sort of build that connection is at a social event or a conference. And who knows, you might find your future employer at one of these conferences. So I first want to talk to you about introductions and small talk. So if you really paid attention to the way I've been speaking, and even when I was trained to be on radio, especially because you're using your voice a lot, Sri Lankans and the way we speak, it's very musical. Like we don't speak like this. For example, Trump, he just has a very monotonous way of speaking, whether it's good news or bad news. But Sri Lankans, on the other hand, is very like, oh, did you know that this happened? And like the other one is carrying on with the other one. So that's basically how we speak. But for some reason, when it comes to us publicly speaking or even introducing ourselves, we just quickly lose that touch. I advise you to stay close to that, and I'll tell you in a bit why that's important. We remember songs and melodies a little more, they're a bit more memorable. And I want you to try this out with me. When you're introducing yourself to someone, and if it's your first name or your last name, and if you want them to remember both names, I want you to remember this curve and think of your voice as this curve. So we're going to do an inflection and a deflection. So I'm going to take my name as an example. When I'm introducing myself to someone, I will go, hi, my name is Michelle Ornella. That's basically, and I'm breaking down my word into 2 syllables, right? So Michelle Ornella, really nice to meet you. And if I take an example from one of our participants today, my name is Ashan De Silva. Rather than saying I'm Ashan De Silva, it's really nice and memorable when you introduce yourself saying Ashan De Silva. So you can try that out with your microphones muted or unmuted. But it's research suggests that there's a higher chance for someone to remember that. So you've made your introduction, and now you're going to move into small talk. If you personally ask me, I am not a fan of small talk, mainly because you kind of have to sort of keep the conversation going and you're going to run out of topics. But the reason small talk is really, really important is once you seal your identity and you've introduced yourself, you're moving on to sealing that foundation with a good amount of cement with small talk, and then you can move on to building on that relationship with, maybe you want to seal a deal with the person. Maybe it's a business contract. Maybe you want to hire this person. Maybe you want to get hired into this company. So a lot of the things afterwards is basically after you do your introductions and small talk. So I've given you 2 examples, and hopefully you can see the green outline and the red outline. More often than not, you're going to forget or you're going to not remember a couple of topics in terms of small talk. A good thumb rule to go is stay away from, controversial topics. That's really important. Yeah, Ditali, you have a question? No, okay. Stay away from controversial topics, because what you don't want happening is already crumbling the foundation that you're struggling to build. So you can talk about things like general observations, like the weather. Do you think it's going to rain today? Weather is always a safe topic. Or you can talk about the event, like, what a great turnout. Next, you can talk about your day, like, what plans do you have over the weekend? I'm planning to go to Gaul. I haven't been there in so long. Or you can talk about how nice it is to have a day off and attend this conference, to sort of be away from work. You can talk about current events. Cricket is an excellent topic in Sri Lankan context. Or you can talk about significant events like the Pope is coming. Entertainment. It's a really, really cool way for you to form a bond almost instantaneously with someone. So, for example, do you watch Money Heist? What do you think of the last season of Game of Thrones? Or finally, you can talk about work. Like, okay, I heard you work in the banking industry. What is it like? What is it like there? Is it as stressful as what they say it is? Or you can talk about commuting to work or driving to work. So these are quite safe topics that you can even get to know and form that instantaneous bond with someone. A few things that you should definitely steer away is talking about appearances. Yeah, Bani.
Sorry, a couple of points. One, there is a question, and also on the slide, it doesn't show the green and the red, so you might need to...
Okay, cool. Thanks, Bani. We have a question. What is the protocol we should follow as a student in this situation? So it's quite easy. You can introduce yourself as a student saying, hi, I'm a student, or what is it that you do? And you can start or give a background depending on how open the person is to the conversation. And you can start about, what you're currently doing, what you've done before, what your interest is, what you're planning to do in the future. You can definitely build on that content once you have broken the ice with these simple small talk topics. So Bani also said that you can't necessarily see the greens and the reds. So what you see on the left-hand side, in terms of observations, your day, current events, those are the good ones. The ones on the right, those are the bad ones. Those are the ones that you should stay clear. So Ashan, I hope I answered your question. So you can talk about just the general topics, like let's say, what did you think the last topic, the last season of Game of Thrones was? And you start to build that conversation, and then in case they ask you saying, what is it that you're doing? Or you can say, by the way, so I'm a student and I'm studying this at the moment, and I'll be completing my degree at, in this particular year. And you know what, I'm kind of curious to work in financial services. I heard that you're part of it. What is it like to work there? And you can generally start the conversation on. But what you shouldn't do is go, hi, my name is Ashan De Silva. I heard you work in the financial market. What is it like? When you're moving into that, it's sort of like a forced conversation. And you're sort of giving this impression like you're trying to take advantage of it. So you don't want both of you guys to feel uncomfortable. So having these kind of small talks eases you into having that conversations. It's quite easy. Moving on to the do not do this at all. And I call this a Sri Lankan auntie, which is, you've gained so much of weight, or you've lost weight. What did you do? This is not the place for you to do that. Or even to comment on, I have just used this as an example because I didn't want to be politically incorrect. But you know, in more often than not, you'll probably say, those Indians are like so loud. Those Americans are always eating. Like, becoming very stereotypical. You kind of get this impression that you're quite judgmental, and you shouldn't do that. As much as we love to make fun of this topic, politics is another thing that we should stay clear of, because what you don't want happening is sort of bringing cracks into the conversation in case you all have different opinions in terms of politics. Religion, another topic that you should stay clear of. Do not talk about religion at all, whether you believe in God or not. Money, another topic. Do not talk about it. Don't talk about, oh, so you work in the banking industry, so what was your starting salary like, or do they pay really well? No, not a topic to start off with. Once you're completely comfortable, maybe, but that's a couple of weeks or months away of like possibly getting acquainted with the person. And finally, personal information. Oh, I just broke up with my girlfriend, or my wife and I've been fighting. My kids are like screaming, and I can't deal with kids. No, don't talk about any of this. I also want to talk to you about eventually when you do get a business card, and I have one over here. Whoops. I want to talk to you about how you could give your business cards. So a good idea is sort of not to keep your business cards. Guys, don't keep it in your pockets, because once you sort of close your wallet and it's in your back, it sort of forms a very curved appearance. What you need your business cards to look like is nice, crisp, and clear, and sort of like very sharp edges and all of that. So when you're giving your business card, you should always give it with 2 thumbs like this, and it needs to face the person. So here's my business card from the London Stock Exchange Group. So when I'm giving it, I need to sort of have the letters facing the person. So when I'm going to present the business card, I'm going to be like, hi, here's my business card. Really nice to meet you. So that's basically how you do it. So that's basically like me on a tiny card. Please get in touch with me. And that's basically how you give your business card. So eventually, even if you're a student, and let's say that you have a student card that you sort of put your credentials and your interests in, if you do, that's another way that you can give your cards. And another really quick and easy tip for you to do is when someone gives their business card to you, my father taught me this, just make a note of the back of the card when and where you met the person. Because when you pick up the card in a couple of weeks' time and you sort of get in touch with the person and say, oh, hi, my name is Michelle. I'm not sure if you recall, but I met you at this SLASCOM event on the 30th of March. And the reason they're going to get that help is from writing it at the back of the card. So the minute you make that connection, it kind of makes a person a bit more think that, oh, this person remembers the exact date and time that we met. Not in a very creepy way, but sort of makes that event feel like it's memorable. Do you guys have any questions regarding networking? No? Okay, let's move on to the next one. Again, it's on meeting topics as well. So a couple of things. Yeah.
Sorry, Michelle, it's Ruini. I might just add something. I find like if I met someone for the first time and then I interact with them again, if I've remembered something about them and I tell them that, I find that really helps. Not in kind of just a salesy way, but it's really good to listen to what the other person is saying and pick up and remember things, because that helps you build an authentic relationship with that person. You're not just there to get something out of them, but you're building a relationship.
Correct. So correct to what Ruini said, what you don't want to give the impression is someone sort of being in a situation where you're trying to take advantage of the person. Hence why I said investing time in introducing yourself, the small talk, actually building that relationship, and then moving on to what you want really sort of makes a lasting impression. So just want to echo what Ruini said. Moving on to meeting etiquettes, again, do's and don'ts. Hopefully you should be able to see the greens as the do's and the reds as don'ts. So this could be either a standing casual meeting or a scheduled meeting. Either way, it's just general meeting etiquette and some sort of behavior that you should compose yourself with in a meeting setup. Number one is listen. Give it your 101% of effort, because there's a group of people here in a meeting who could possibly be doing something else, but they've taken time off to come and sit for this meeting because it's definitely important. So listen. If you want to sort of carry a cup of coffee, especially sometimes you're in back-to-back meetings or back-to-back events, and you don't necessarily have the time or space for you to sort of, have your 10 o'clock coffee or that booster, you can carry a coffee with you. But again, just think twice whether this is the kind of meeting that you want to take something to drink with in case it spills and there's some important documents that get destroyed in the process. Taking notes. A lot of things get discussed in meetings, as you'll get to know eventually. And it's important that while we're giving 100% effort into listening, just make notes of what you're doing at the moment, so you know, and you can reflect back when you're back in your seat on certain action points that you were or were not supposed to do. The other one, the fourth point that even it's something that I'm not a quite fan of, is having people come in for meetings when they're not prepared. Like I said, there's a lot of people coming in for the meeting that's, that could be doing something else. So take that extra effort, even if it's 5 minutes before your meeting, just read through the agenda or read through a previous email or a document that you're going to discuss during this email, and come prepared to discuss that. Don't expect people at the meeting to tell you what to do. And finally, something that I would like you guys to do during this session as well is to ask questions. Like, there's no silly question at all on the table, or no one's going to think of it in that way, unless and otherwise you haven't come prepared. That's a different story. But having said that, it's really important for you to sort of ask questions, because number one, if you have any clarifications, here's a group of people for you to get your feedback in one go. The second thing is, when you ask questions, it also gives the impression to the person who's either conducting the meeting or the people at the meeting, it gives the impression to the people that, oh, this person actually was listening. Oh, that's a really good point. It's a really good way to ask questions to show how your thinking pattern works and your intellectuality works. So asking questions is definitely on the top of my list. A couple of things not to do is basically just the opposite of things that you should do, like talk constantly. Wait for someone else to finish speaking, and then you can talk. Eating. Unless and otherwise specified, unless it's like a lunch meeting or a breakfast meeting, it's a really good idea not to bring your lunch boxes with you, unless and otherwise mentioned. Checking your phone, do that occasionally, but if you really have to, in only cases of emergencies. Being late, unless and otherwise, it's sort of, a rare occasion, or something that was unavoidable. Like, let's say that you were driving to work and something happened to your vehicle, or let's say that you are using public transport and something happened then, or maybe you felt something happened at home. Unless and otherwise, always make sure they're at least a couple of minutes early for your meeting, and then interruptions. Avoid that at all costs. Wait for your turn. While you're eager to ask a question, sometimes if you listen in, sometimes the question is already answered, or you can have a follow-up question to the answer that the person has already given you. So there's a couple of tips on what you can and what you shouldn't do on meetings. And lastly, we're going into the last segment, which is dining etiquette. Okay, so I put up a picture of basically almost a formal dining setup, because I thought if you put this up, even if a couple of things are taken away, you can find your way. So when I first learned about the proper way of dining, I almost thought it was like going to war, because here you are at a table and you have all these utensils, and if you're sitting at a table of 6 or 8 people, more often than not, like, you're not even sure which glass of water is yours, which spoon or fork is yours. You're not quite sure where to go. So to start things off, I want you to remember BMW. And Shankar, I'm not sure if you can sort of move your mouse around this, but B stands for bread, the bread plate, okay? M stands for your serving plate. So think of it like your mains, okay? And W is your water, right? So think of it of BMW. Because what you don't want doing is taking the other person's water and drinking it up. So always remember BMW. So your bread plate or your bread is always going to be on your left. The main plate or the serving plate is going to be in your middle, and your water is always going to be on your right. So the minute you sort of get that action going, you'll know where you're supposed to sit and you'll know which glass of water is yours. The other important thing is you have all of these different types of forks and spoons. A really good idea is for you to start from out and then work your way in. So you can start off with if you're starting with salads, you can start off with your salad fork, which is right on the outside, and then comes to your dinner fork. So you either start with either a starter, or then you go salads and soups and mains, etc. So if you're not quite sure which to use when, outwards and work your way inwards, and then you'll have your dessert stuff just right on top. Eating bread and dinner. This is something that I've seen happen on airplanes. I've seen happen in, in general, even Lankan weddings. When we usually get a dinner bun or a soup bun to sort of go complement with our soup, what you shouldn't do is sort of like take your bun, cut it open with a knife, open it out, slap some butter on it, open it, and sort of eat it like a burger. Believe it or not, that's not necessarily how you're supposed to do it. Who came up with these rules? I don't know, but this is basically what you're supposed to do. So you take your bun, you break off a piece. So you break your bun, and you have it in your left side hand. Then you take your knife, your butter knife, scoop in some butter, rub that on the bread, and then eat. That's basically how you're supposed to eat your bread. Not necessarily hamburger mode, but more of like, think of it like dips and swab and eat. That's basically how you eat your bread or dinner bun. Soups. The reason I'm asking, focusing on soups, and I have a soup bowl and a soup spoon over here. Slurping is considered generally, apart from possibly a couple of East Asian countries, more often than not, you're not supposed to slurp your soup. The other thing is, when you're sort of trying to get into the last bit of your soup, usually what we do is we turn it towards us and start drinking it this way. But the correct way of doing it is turning it the other way. So sort of having your bowl not this way, but away from you. And then you sort of take your spoon, dink it there, and then basically drink it. The reason so I know the reason why they do this, mainly because soup is hot. And in case you turn it this way, if your hand or something slips, it's basically on you. But if you turn it the other way, it's a good health and safety hazard. So you're not spilling soup on you. And let's say that, okay, so a couple of months or weeks down the line, when all of this is over, you go in for a dinner or you go in for that canceled wedding of your cousins. And I know Michelle spoke about this during that last webinar, but I really don't know how to, I really don't know what to do. The last tip is just follow your host. Usually in formal dining settings, there's a host. And that is usually why we basically open, the buffet. We go to the buffet after the bride and the groom sort of opens the buffet for us. That's basically the host, right? So you can follow what your host is doing. And usually you don't lead the host. You wait for the host to start dessert, and that's when you start dessert. That's basically the general rule to go. So a good reason for this is, in case you forget what to use when, you can just basically do what us humans are great at, which is just improvise and mimic what they're doing. Just copy what they're doing. So if they feel like, and more often than not, they're going to do it the correct way. But that's a really good general rule for you to go. So remember, BMW, start your way out and work your way in. Remember how to use your, how to eat your bread and dinner bun. Remember about turning your soup the other way, no slurping. And then if you forget everything else, just follow your host. And what do we have next? Okay, so we covered 4 pointers, but I just want to sort of, while I was making the slide deck, I thought, okay, we don't necessarily know how long we're going to continue in this whole work from home mode. So I was just thinking that maybe I should just cover a couple of points, whether you're attending your lectures from home or whether you're attending meetings or group meetings at home. Here's a couple of things that have been a revelation for me. So stick to your usual routine. As a person who studies psychology, we study a lot of things on sleep. So we've learned about the delta waves, the beta waves, alpha waves, and even REM sleep. So sticking to that usual routine on the long term gives you really, really good sleep and has amazing effects on your sleep. So if you're used to going to sleep at 10 o'clock, go to sleep at 10. And if you're used to sort of waking up at 6, wake up at 6. Just because you don't have lectures on a particular day or not, don't sort of move your way throughout your sleep cycle. Of course, if you have something that's due and that's really important, that's basically where you interrupt your sleep. But more often than not, it's really important that you stick to your usual routine. Step number 2, move every 20 minutes. So research says that sitting is the new smoking. You can still fall sick and sort of have non-communicable diseases by just sitting. So make an effort to at least walk around your house. And I don't mean walking to your fridge and back to your seats every 20 minutes. But really, really important to just keep moving and get that blood circulation going in your body. Number 3, I don't know if you guys remember Dialogue Kit, but I just thought of it. Kit is basically keep in touch. As humans, we are quite social, so it's essential that we sort of keep in touch with our friends, keep in touch with our family, so you don't sort of become this isolated person who's grumpy and like stressed all the time. So make sure that you keep in touch. Number 4, we have some extra time in our hands right now, meaning we're not spending time driving up and down to work or to school or to university. So I would definitely suggest that you take that time to focus on your own personal growth, because we don't necessarily get the opportunity to do this. And Roni has shared some interesting reading material for you, a Dale Carnegie book, which is absolutely amazing. So if possible, just try and see if you could download an ebook, a podcast. If you want to learn a new skill, be it sewing, baking, possibly a new health routine, but just focus on your group as well, on your growth, sorry. And number 5 is be mindful when you're attending meetings. So, but because we're especially sort of doing everything on a technical platform, we usually face a lot of technical issues. So having said that, just try joining into meetings 5 to 10 minutes earlier so you can clean out all or any technical issues that do crop up. And start the conversation saying, hi, how is everyone doing? At least spend 2 to 3 minutes to sort of check in with everyone, see if they're doing okay. It's really, really important. Number 6, video conferences. Even though you are at home, be professional. I kind of took an extra effort to make myself look presentable today. And it's kind of important that you do that as well. And if you're doing your setting at home, make sure there's no clutter in the background. I've locked myself in a study room. My husband's outside on working his way on his day-to-day activities. So I sort of segregated that too and made my own little space, because I really want to give a 100% of effort into this meeting over here. So hence why be professional. Number 7, hydrate and eat extra healthy. Again, moving into point number 2, we're not getting a lot of physical activity as we usually did. So it's really, really important for you to stay hydrated and healthy. And number 8, be mindful of your posture. Since we're not necessarily going to sit at your desks that are ergonomically designed, unlike in your office workspace or your university, you're possibly either on your bed or your dining table or your sofa area. But just be mindful that staying in those positions for a really long time does have an effect on your neck, on your back, your hands, all of that. And the muscles on your neck and your back are quite sensitive. I should know. I have issues there. So be very, very careful in terms of adjusting your posture, doing those stretches, do some yoga, even if it's at your desk. There are some really interesting articles that you can read up about doing some yoga stretches at your desk. You can Google them about it, and possibly we can share some articles with you as well. That's basically all I have for you, unless and otherwise you guys have any questions. On to the next slide.